want to move on to think about digital safety, online safety, e-safety. We're going to think about sources of help, as before, institutions, organisations that produce things that you can use as teachers moving forward. But I want to start by thinking, or getting you to think more appropriately, about your professionalism. So in previous videos, I've talked about a key element of safeguarding being you modelling professional behaviour, or you modelling appropriate behaviour. This couldn't be more true than with e-safety, digital safety, online safety. So I want you to be quite reflective here, and I want you to start thinking about how you are presented online. What does your Facebook say about you? What does your Twitter account say about you? The emails that you send to people, what do they say about you? Because from this point onwards, you're now a teacher. And that the fact that you're a teacher needs to be reflected in the way that you present yourself online. So start off by thinking to yourself, what does professionalism mean to you? When you think back to your childhood at school, which teachers seemed professional to you? Which ones were professional? What made you feel like that as a pupil at school, as a parent of children, as a trainee teacher now looking at the people around you? What does professionalism as a concept mean to you? And then have a think about, what do we mean if we're describing someone as acting professionally or acting unprofessionally? How does that materialise itself in your head? Have a think about examples of professionalism when working with children. What do you think you need to do? What do you think you need to be? How do you think you need to act in order to be considered professional when working with children? And then conversely, when does that become unprofessional? What kind of things happen in order to make your behaviour unprofessional when working with children and pupils? And these are key lines in the sand almost. These are key things for you to start to get your head around when it comes to considering what appropriate behaviour is and then what appropriate online behaviour is. So how does your online profile, think about if you have Facebook, if you have Twitter, etc., if you have a YouTube account, if you subscribe to these kinds of social media sites, if you use emails, if you contribute to websites, etc. When someone looks for your name online, and by someone I mean a pupil, a child, a parent in school, what are they going to find? And how is that going to tally with what you've just been thinking about in terms of your list of professional attributes and your list of unprofessional attributes? Okay, so these are key concerns for you to start thinking about very quickly in terms of how you're presented online. This is a movie. I'm not going to play it because I don't think this will work. Basically, playing a YouTube video through a lecture recording device, but I am going to include this in the folder on my Beckett. I'm going to call this movie "Why Do People Act Differently Online?" and it's 90 seconds, I would imagine, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and it really gets you thinking, I think, about how, when you stop and study it, how social media behaviour in particular is actually quite strange when you look at it in the cold light of day. Hopefully you enjoyed the video if you decided to watch it. Start to have a think then about email addresses that you might have. kissed-your-dad at such and such.com is a real email address from a PGCE applicant that we had. I have to say I find things like that quite funny, but I'm not recruiting for a job as a head teacher or recruiting for an NQT. So you need to think about how these things reflect on you. Think about the photos that are visible on your social media sites. Are they appropriate for children to see, for pupils to see, for parents to see, for future employers to see? Can they see them? These are things that you need to be able to answer. Do you live your life on social media? Every meal that you cook appears on Facebook or whatever, every thought that you have, is that the way that you want to present yourself? And importantly, would everyone approve of the life that you lead on social media? Okay, so there's a little photograph there, bottom right, of David Hasselhoff having his very public meltdown that he posted on social media for some reason. You need to think that if these images, videos, thoughts are out there, then people will be able to access them. Okay, so think about parents of future pupils, future head teachers that are checking you out when you apply for jobs. And believe me, we check you out. We will have a look for Facebook profiles, we'll have a look for Twitter profiles, etc. We Google the names of applicants before we invite to interview, and that's not us being cruel. That is pretty much every employer I can think of these days. If you put information out there, if you publish your thoughts and your images about yourself, then people will look at them. I mean, after all, that is the reason that you put them out there in the first place. So please be conscious of this. Your online profile is a massive part of your profile. So as I've just alluded to, judgments are going to be made about you now to differentiate you from hundreds of other people moving forward. So when you're applying for jobs, when people are thinking about you for promotions in school, promotions in your setting, etc., these all are going to contribute to how people perceive you. And just please be aware that these judgments are going to be made by both employers, parents, and also children. So have a think about what's accessible. Just some real examples. These are tweets from teachers. I'll let you read them. Okay. 2 different teachers. An American one. You need to think about, the way that this kind of comment might be representing you for years to come. Because bear in mind, these tweets may well have been deleted now because of the trouble that they caused, but they still exist in presentations like mine. I think that one says it all. Paris Brown, you may well remember, lost a job as the UK's first youth police and crime commissioner, only a couple of days into the role. And this was because of tweets that she'd made as a 14-year-old girl that were still on her profile, that were found by journalists when they were trying to trying to write stories about her. So if this stuff is out there, then people will find it. The girl with the Carlsberg glass and the Carlsberg pint pot in her left hand and what looks like a glass of red wine in her right hand. This girl was actually sacked from a teaching position because of this photo. And again, this is the kind of thing where for me, what is she doing wrong there? But parents had a problem with that image being freely accessible online, and parents having a problem meant that the head teacher had a problem. And then just above her, a real tweet, this time from a head teacher, dropped another prospect this morning due to his social media presence. Actually glad I got to see the real person before we offered him, and this was in relation to a job. So these things do have an impact. So ask yourself, who's looking at, who's commenting on, who's making judgments about your Facebook page, your Twitter identity, your Snapchat photos, your Instagram, etc., etc., etc. And do you have a strict personal code of ethics about how you use social media and online tools? So me, for instance, I used to have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. I find Twitter is brilliant from a professional point of view. So I have a professional Twitter account. I don't follow family and friends. They don't follow me. It's purely about work. So I tweet about safeguarding. I tweet about teacher training. I teach about higher education. I used to have a Facebook page I'd run for many, many years, and tried to keep that separate. So that was personal only. But after a while, in all honesty, decided that I didn't like a lot of the friends that I had. I didn't like the kind of things that they were putting online, because I am conscious about this kind of thing. So people that were ordinarily nice people in real life, when you saw some of the things that they were putting on Facebook, it made me think twice. And then it made me think, well, how am I being judged if I'm connected to these people and some of the nonsense that they're putting online? So I and we would never criticise you for having social media. We actually believe that social media can be a fantastic tool for teaching, but you do need to start to draw a line in the sand around what your personal social media is and what it contains, and any professional social media that you might want to take on, and really start to consider how people would embrace, how people would be affected by the kind of things that you might have online at the moment. I give this talk to all our trainees every year, and this is one of ours. So this was, I mean, these tweets are January, after this lady would have received this this presentation probably in September or October. So these are tweets that one of our former trainee teachers, who didn't stay on the course much longer after these tweets went out. You just got to think, parents, if you're going into a school as a trainee teacher, parents are going to check you out. Parents are going to find out your name from their child, and they're going to look for you online, and you need to control what they can see. And obviously this particular individual, despite the fact that she'd had this session, didn't do that. Think about this in terms of modelling positive behaviour, as we've already discussed. We know that 25% of youngsters in huge surveys have admitted to communicating and sharing details with strangers. We know that 5% of youngsters have admitted to communicating and sharing details of a sexual nature with strangers. Okay, so you can start to make a change by the way that you use social media, by the way that you use technology, and actually demonstrating that through your actions to children, to pupils. As I've said at the bottom of the screen there, children can be tech savvy, network hungry, digital natives. But that doesn't mean that they make good decisions without our guidance. Okay, so being confident with an iPad, being confident with social media, doesn't necessarily mean that children are making the best decisions when they're using it. And that's where we come in.